Hi, guys. Today we're talking about the massive case of Alec Murdaugh. His full name is Richard Alexander Murdaugh. He's from the very affluent legal dynasty in South Carolina. The Murdaughs had become the district attorneys and legal representatives for the area for generations upon generations. When you said the name Murdaugh, power and money was synonymous with the name Murdaugh in this area. Now, unfortunately, one man, after decades and decades of power and control, one man would unravel this whole family dynasty, and his name is Alec Murdaugh. Now, no one really knew the corruption that was going on behind the scenes with Alex Murdaugh until 2019. His son got into some major legal trouble when he decided to drive his father's boat with a few friends. They all got drunk, even though they were underage, and he caused an accident in that boat, and a young woman named Mallory Beach was lost. They found her body a few days later. Now, this was the beginning of the end for Alec Murdaugh. Now, Alec Murdaugh had been doing a lot of underhanded deals financial wise. He had been stealing money from clients, and he'd been stealing money from his own family law firm. So this law firm was in his family. His family started it. His name was on the door. And yet eventually he would be dismissed from his own law firm for stealing and millions of dollars directly from his clients and from embezzling from the law firm. But that is not the end of it. That is just scratched the surface of it. Come to find out, he had an opiate addiction. He also he had a maid that died in his home, Gloria Satterfield. In 2018, the maid died suspiciously. If that wasn't enough to be most people, one thing happens and then you'd be under suspicion, but not a Murdaugh here. This maid dies suspiciously in a slip and fall accident at his house. And then he kind of cons the children into a way of creating a lawsuit against himself. He's going to represent them against himself, which is legally unethical. And most places you wouldn't get away with that, but he was basically working both sides of this to get, I believe it was $4 million from his insurance company that he's supposed to give to the children of his maid. Unfortunately, that money never gets to the children of the maid. It just lines the pockets of the illegal attorney. Okay, so all of this is under wraps as of 2018 and doesn't come out publicly until his son gets into this boating accident, and everything starts to unravel then. Now, he starts to get caught up in things. You can only pull this stuff off for so long. While that all of this is happening, all of a sudden his wife and his son are murdered on his property, and they make a big deal. Somebody's out to get the Murdaughs. This was a hit. People in the town are like, oh my gosh, people are targeting the Murdaughs because they're so powerful, so wealthy, so whatever. And so, but that goes on and doesn't seem like anybody's arrested for that. And then during that process, they find in these investigations that there was a local gay boy who was killed and left on the side of the road, that may have links to Murdaugh or his sons. And if that's not enough, then you find that he also staged his own murder, but the plot failed. When the gunshot didn't kill him, it just grazed his head. So all of this comes out since 2019. You've got the double murder of his wife and son. You've got the fact that his son was negligent and caused an accident that injured a bunch of people and killed one girl. Then you have another son that may have been implemented, it may have some kind of connections to the death of a local boy. Then you have the suspicious death of the maid. And then you have this strange murder plot that fell through And the whole point to that was he said he was trying to get $10 million of insurance money to go to his oldest son, um, which I'm not sure how that lines up, because he eventually would be convicted of not only killing his wife, but killing his younger son, the one who had the boating accident. He receives 2 life sentences consecutively for that. He still claims his innocence to this day. Then all of these, I believe the last I heard, there's 27 different cases against 27 different cases against Alec Murdaugh for all of his financial crimes, embezzling and stealing from his clients. And he received 40 years sentence for his financial crimes just recently. Now he's in the news now because they think they're trying to punch holes in this murder trial. They're trying to say, well, no, this was manipulated by that, and that was manipulated by this. There was one juror that they think may have been tampering with something, so they let her go. They've done everything they can to try to wrangle this around to make Alec Murdaugh a victim. They said that his financial crimes should not have been brought into his criminal crimes, and they said that since they didn't have anything to do with each other, that they should throw the whole thing out because his financial crimes were separate. And I, on one hand, do not agree with that. I believe that his financial crimes were the motive for his other crimes. And so I don't agree with that situation, and we'll have to wait and see what legally turns up. But to this day, he claims his innocence in the murder of his wife and his son. I'll leave that up to you. Right now, he stands as convicted criminal for the murder of his wife and his son. They are still investigating the death of Stephen Smith, the young boy who was killed on the side of the road, and they're still investigating the maid's death to see if it was murder or if it was actually an accident. So this is one of those cases that's in the news. This guy's got 2 consecutive life sentences and another 40-year sentence. And it almost seems like, why would they be trying to appeal the 40-year sentence for his financial crimes when he's already got 2 life sentences? I don't understand those types of things. Why, you're not getting out, buddy. But the next thing is what do you think? Do you think that it was right for them to allow all of his financial crimes were really intense? I mean, there was a local law officer that was wounded in an accident, and he was supposed to have compensation to pay for his surgeries. He ended up having to have spinal surgery, and maybe more than one. I can't remember, but he was supposed to have surgery, and the money was supposed to be put into an account to pay his doctor's bills. And in the middle of all this mess, they find that money was taken and put into the account of Alec Murdaugh. So that's one good thing I can say about that law firm. Not only did they dismiss their own, they did also tell that law officer that they would cover his bills anyways, even though the money had already been stolen. So what do you think on this? To me, I feel like when there is a criminal that is up in front of a judge and jury, you should know everything about that criminal. I don't believe that you should have to separate the crimes. If you have crimes that relate to each other, obviously you need those together. But in this case, they were fighting and trying to get this appealed because they say his financial crimes were so atrocious that it swayed the jurors on the murder trial. Now, on the murder trial, their evidence basically is the fact that Alex said he wasn't there when they can prove he was there by some phone calls. His voice was in the background of some phone calls. The GPS showed where that phone was. Then there was 2 or 3 other things that he had alibis that didn't turn out. They proved that the guns were on the property, that one of them was his family gun that he'd had forever. Another one, so they have all this evidence, and it's basically because of Snapchats. The son had made some contacted other people. The wife had contacted other people before she went to this hunting cabin area, and so they tracked him. By their forensic evidence was all through the tracking of these phone calls, these social media posts, and the GPS on these phones. And so they've got very specific evidence that puts him there, even though he denies being there till later. So to me, you need to know what would push this man to do this. And the pushing of this man to do this was the fact that all of these other things had piled up. Then in the middle of all these investigations, you find out that he had developed an opiate addiction on top of everything else. So you're thinking, okay, why would he kill his wife? Well, there's rumors and things that she was trying to divorce him. His defense attorneys say this is not true, but then there's other evidence that comes through that shows she contacted a divorce attorney. Then you have the son, who had caused so much other issues with his behavior, and the boating accident and things. So you see a man who is on drugs, and his whole world is unraveling. And you have to understand, this is not just his life. He has destroyed and defamed a family that has held the idea of justice in this area for almost 100 years. We're talking decades upon decades. The Murdaugh family stood for justice, the name supposedly justice. So you have to wonder how much more pressure that added too. But even during the 911 calls in 2019, during that boating accident, you hear one of the other kids say, "Hey, he's a Murdaugh. Like, nothing's going to happen to him. He's not going to be arrested for this." And that's the way it was. It was almost like these people were not just above the law, they were the law. And so you've got Alec Murdaugh just destroyed that in one fail swoop. So what do you think? I believe when you have a criminal standing before a trial for judge and jury, everything should be on the table. There shouldn't be anything hid when you find out how much this man has done. How much has he embezzled? How much has he stolen from his maid's estate when she died? He stole from her children. How much of that do you think should be allowed in? To me, I think it's all vitally relevant. It is all relevant to the motive of why he would do these things. We needed to know about his opiate addiction because that is what explains the fact that none of this makes sense. He tried to pull off a murder plot, hire someone to murder him to get $10 million to give to his older son. And nothing about that plot, it all fell through. The bullet grazed him across the back of the head. A short time later when he was in court, nobody could even see the wound on the back of his head. So we needed to know those things. We needed to know about his opiate addiction. That's what makes it all make sense. He's not making sense because he's on drugs. Okay. We need to know about the suspicious death of his maid and how he conned and stole $4 million. We need to know how he was unethical in the fact that in that case, he decided he was going to represent the family and he was going to sue himself. So his insurance had to pay them. All of that is not the way the law is supposed to work. But he got away with it because he was a Murdaugh. Okay. We need to know all those things. And in my opinion on this, all of this was relevant to the murder trial. They needed to know what kind of man was standing before them. But I'm going to leave it up to you, because right now he is still appealing. He says he didn't kill his family. He says that he had nothing to do with those other suspicious deaths in and around him. He does admit the fact that he tried to hire someone to kill himself. But then the hitman, the so-called hitman, comes back and says, he didn't hire me for nothing. He called me, said he was in trouble, and he was broke down beside the road, and I showed up. You know, so even that doesn't make sense. So I'll leave it up to you. Do you think Alec Murdaugh has a right to appeal in this case on the grounds that the jury shouldn't have heard all of his other things? Because that's kind of what they're fighting for now. They're trying to get appealed because they said all of that other stuff was irrelevant to the murder trial, and we shouldn't have known about it. And so I'm going to ask you, I want you to leave your comments and send me your opinions on this, because to me, I think they had the full right to know exactly why this man did what he did. And so do you think he has a right to appeal his case? I'll leave it up to you. See you next time.